Now, the aviation sector. The raging questions around airline safety are back. The radar is today on SpiceJet for sure. The airline has reported two separate incidents, all within a span of 24 hours. For one, the outer windshield on that SpiceJet flight that was flying between Kandla and Mumbai cracked. Thankfully, the flight landed safely. And earlier in the day, a SpiceJet flight from Dubai to Delhi had to make an emergency landing in Karachi after a malfunction took place. We've heard from SpiceJet about that incident. They've issued a statement saying that that flight between Dubai and Delhi was diverted because of an indicator light malfunctioning. The airline says that no emergency was declared and the aircraft had made a normal landing. Meanwhile, the regulator of the aviation universe in India, the DGCA, the Director General of Civil Aviation, is probing these incidents. We have Sameer Dikshit telling us exactly what has happened and the kind of moves that we've seen from the regulator too. Sameer.
Tuesday, 5th July or Mangalwar was not so Mangal for SpiceJet Airline because of the two incidents with the SpiceJet aircraft that was reported. The first incident that was reported earlier in the day, SpiceJet aircraft Boeing 737 MAX that was operating from Delhi to Dubai was diverted to Karachi, and the airline said that this was done because one of the light indicator was malfunctioning. But later on, the DGCA aviation regulator informed that the fuel indicator was malfunctioning, because of which the flight was diverted to Karachi. It was informed by the regulator that fuel indicator was showing unusual fuel quantity in the left tank. It was diverted to Karachi, and after proper inspection, it was found that there was no fuel leakage. But yes, that was an incident that was reported earlier in the day. In another incident that happened with SpiceJet Q400 aircraft that was operating from Kandla to Mumbai, and in that particular aircraft, the outer pane of the windshield, it was cracked. The SpiceJet airline officials, I would like to quote the exact statement. During cruise at FL 230, P2 side windshield outer pane cracked. Pressurization was observed to be normal, but the aircraft landed safely back in Mumbai. So that was the other incident that was reported about the SpiceJet airline. And in totality, if you see, this was not just two incidents. In last 17 days, there are about 6 incidents that was reported about SpiceJet aircraft, and now DGCA has taken, inspecting all those 6 incidents, that what exactly is the root cause. Is there some safety issues with the aircraft that need to be inspected, that need to be addressed? So DGCA is now inspecting those 6 particular incidents that happened with the SpiceJet aircraft. But definitely, these are not good times for the airline, and it needs to introspect the aircraft's safety as well as its engineering side as well.
Sameer, thanks very much. It raises several important questions about the safety of the airline sector in India. And to help us understand the safety concerns that afflict Indian aviation right now, let's connect with Amit Singh, the founder of Safety Matters Foundation. And also joining us this evening is Mark D. Martin. He's the founder and CEO of Martin Consulting. Great to have you both, gentlemen. Very good evening to you. Really, I mean, like my colleague was talking about, there was this windshield crack on a SpiceJet flight today. From what I'm observing, this is the 7th safety-related concern in SpiceJet in less than 3 weeks. And the other incidents, which of course the DGCA is all too aware about, includes 2 door warnings, a bird hit, oil leakage from an engine, a pressurization problem. And then there is today's malfunction as well, the indicator malfunction that we're talking about, a SpiceJet plane flying from Delhi to Dubai. That had to be diverted to Karachi because of that malfunctioning indicator light. Mark, I want to ask you, is the level of problems, the kind of problems that we're talking about, do they lie with the airline? Does it lie with the aircraft that they use, the sector, the kind of regulations we have within the aviation pack? Where does the buck stop?
Vikram, good evening and thanks for having me. The issue here lies more on a collective of a lot of things. One is reliability of aircraft. 2, the whole idea of restarting operations post the COVID lockdown, pushing your operation. And now granted, when you're packed your aircraft for a very long time, you are going to have certain issues. You're going to have pilots who are rusty. Quite a few elements just keep coming on from all sides to hit you. From what we know from what's there in terms of data, major incidents that have been loud enough for people to take notice has been 17 in the last 2 years. These have been runway excursions, V1 cut, return back, air turn back. You've had engine failure issues, you've had smoke in the cabin, and so on. And I think all of these collectively point out to who on earth is in charge, who's calling the shots, who's planning preemptive maintenance, who's sitting with the crew. Are the crew, what the crew's reporting, are they actually being taken and on board and factored of what's in the FRB and the tech log? There are a lot of aspects which have to be really focused on the internal airline functioning itself, which is flight operations, which is maintenance engineering, and with their reliability data. But on the flip side, I think if you really look at the total amount of snags and incidents which have occurred, and mind you, these are incidents that have been loud enough for people to notice. What about the other stuff which has not been reported? What about the other stuff which is being buried and pilots are told to, maybe fly with a bad weather radar or an FMC now or FMC computer that doesn't work or a NAVCOM that doesn't work? So, collectively, I think the DGCA has to get involved.
Yes.
On the broader scheme of things out there, I think with all of this, SpiceJet has got a major PR crisis on their hands. They need to get out there and tell the traveler that they're a safe airline to fly, because they've had far too many incidents, far too many issues which are there with their aircraft.
Far beyond
the MAX.
Mark Martin.
The MAX is not stable.
Yes,
right?
I understand that. But Mark, they'll have to go far beyond a PR exercise, because at a primary level, these incidents are recurring in nature. So there is some fundamental problem here. Mark Martin, the aviation industry in India, we're talking about the third largest market as far as the aviation sector is concerned in all of Asia. It's the 9th largest in the world. There are over 19 million passengers that are carried annually. Of course, there have been attempts to bring in safety, to introduce a bill on air safety, but the government has not been able to do so far. Draft air safety bill, which was put together by the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, has proposed some stringent rules for airlines that they need to follow. Hefty penalties are also suggested over there for those who are unable or unwilling to comply with the new rules. There are penalties, and all of that has been put down. Why haven't we been able to create a framework, in your understanding? Why do we continue to put our passengers' lives at risk, you believe?
Vikram, we're adequately guarded on a lot of safety requirements and safety regulations already. There already is an SMS framework in place. The DGCA does proactively keep a check on aircraft. FDM data monitoring is submitted every month, every cycle, which is your DFDR, your black box data is recorded and downloaded and analyzed. And you go back and assess to see exceedance monitoring, look at monitoring exceedances and so on. We've got that. But the problem here is focused on the whole idea of the buck stopping with the airline. A lot of what we're seeing centers on part failure, even the runway excursion. What were the conditions on the brakes? Why was there a runway excursion? Was it a crew issue? If it was a crew issue, why wasn't it trained? Now, I know Amit highlighted the whole idea of Boeing. Now, that is also true. Boeing has had pedantic issues with the 737 MAX because it's not a clean sheet design. The entire 737 is a 1960s design concept that you've just kept on adding in newer technology and what you call foie gras effect on the aircraft by forcefully adding new innovation to compete with Airbus. And guess what? The aircraft is not going to take it beyond a point. The point here is, that question on the MAX would occur if you see a catastrophic event, if you see a major crash or an emergency landing, which the aircraft is written off. What we're seeing now with SpiceJet, it begins and ends with the maintenance and engineering head, the maintenance team. Why aren't, if you know that your windshield has delaminated, if you know that there is a crack, who's there to tell you it's within limits? If the pilot says, well, there's a crack, I'm not going to fly it, listen to him, fix it. So this problem is an airline problem. How come we don't see this with Indigo, Vikram? How come we don't see it with Go Air? How come we don't see this with Air India? How come we don't see it with Vistara and Air Asia? I think that answers the question. The problem here is, this is an airline that is restarted, gotten out of the COVID lockdown. They're They want to get flying ace immediately. They want to take as much as what you just said.
I take your point. I want to ask Amit Singh if he agrees with you. Do you think, Amit Singh? Amit Singh, do you? Yes.
Vikram, let me finish, Vikram. We're the largest aviation markets, agreed. And that volume and capacity of sustaining that kind of air transport, we need reliable aircraft that don't break. And aircraft are breaking here.
So where does the buck stop, Amit Singh? If Mark Martin believes that the problem is with the airline, I want to ask you if you agree, because if you're talking about the third largest aviation market in the world after the UK and China, we're expected to grow tremendously over the next few years. Certainly safety needs to be at the forefront. It certainly isn't. Why do you think that is not? And what is it going to take to put it right up there?
Clearly, the intent is not there. DGCA is well equipped. Recently, the bill was passed wherein DGCA has been empowered to impose fines up to 1 crore or imprisonment. But if you have seen the reports in the past few weeks, DGCA has imposed fines of 10 lakhs. So where did the 10 lakh figure come from? The enforcement manual of the DGCA says 1 crore. Why is there a hefty discount being given to the operators? So that needs to be found out. We don't look at the root cause of the event. We look at the immediate cause, which is why did it happen? Was the engineer responsible or was the pilot responsible? We fix a blame. So we are basically looking at blame. That is a blame game going on, not fixing the root cause. If you look at the Air India accident, Air India Express accident at Calicut, the pilot was blamed for not complying with SOP. But why did the pilot not comply with SOP? It was a big training issue.
Right.
The pilot moved from Air India Express to Air India Mainstream, then came back. So these are the issues which are not being addressed. When Kingfisher folded up, there was a regulation issued by DGCA, which was if an airline is affected by financial crisis, then it is incumbent upon the DGCA to look at if that financial crisis affects the safety matters, basically your spare parts, which are the rotables. So these cost a lot. Are you cannibalizing it from other
Amit Singh,
aircrafts?
you're saying that the DGCA, the regulator of the aviation sector, requires more teeth, because if the laws are in place and they're not getting implemented, then they don't have the teeth to carry this forth, and that is the need of the hour. And of course, Mark Martin maintains that it is the airline where the buck stops. This is not something that we are going to hear the last of. And the more and more we hear of these incidents, we treat them on a day-to-day basis, and then we just kind of glean over them. It gets something that we aren't able to address in any kind of a constituted way, in a way that the DGCA is able to come down heavily with penalties and ensuring that such incidents don't recur. It's not happening so far. We hope that it does. But for the moment, we are seeing these incidents twice in a day as far as one airline is concerned. Perhaps we may see more unless we do something about it. But thanks very much for joining us, Amit Singh and Mark Martin. Thanks for joining us with your perspective on this rather important story.